let me tell you something that most people get completely wrong. When someone you care about walks away, your first instinct is to chase, to text more, to explain yourself, to prove your worth. But here's the truth. The more you chase, the more you push them further away. Because attraction doesn't grow from pressure, it grows from space, curiosity, and emotional strength. So if he left, the most powerful thing you can do is not to run after him, it's to shift your energy completely. Instead of asking, how do I get him back? Start asking, how do I become the version of myself that no one wants to lose? Because when you react with calm confidence instead of panic, you flip the entire dynamic. Most people react with fear. You respond with self-respect. Most people beg for attention. You become the person who attracts it naturally. And here's what happens next. He starts to feel something he didn't expect, your absence, not the kind of absence filled with drama, but the kind that makes him wonder, why isn't she chasing me like I thought she would? That question, that curiosity, that's where attraction is reborn. Because now, instead of you trying to win him back, he starts trying to win you back. And this isn't about playing games. It's about emotional maturity. It's about knowing that your value doesn't decrease just because someone walked away. It's about understanding that the right person doesn't need to be convinced, but they do need to feel your absence if they took you for granted. So instead of collapsing, you rise. You focus on your life, your growth, your happiness. You rebuild your energy in a way that says, I'm not here to chase love, I'm here to attract it. And that energy, it's magnetic. Because when someone sees that you didn't break, you didn't beg, you didn't lose yourself, they start to realize something powerful. They didn't just leave you. They walked away from someone rare, and that's when they come back, not out of pity, but out of desire. The moment he pulls away or leaves, there's a powerful emotional surge that takes over. Your mind starts racing, your heart feels unsettled, and your instinct tells you to do something immediately. That something usually looks like reaching out, sending a message, asking for answers, or trying to fix whatever went wrong. It feels urgent, almost like if you don't act right now, you'll lose him forever. But this instinct, as natural as it feels, is the very thing that works against you. Chasing comes from a place of fear. It sends a subtle but clear message that you are trying to hold on to something that is slipping away. And when someone feels chased, they don't feel more connected. They feel pressured. Pressure creates resistance. Instead of missing you, instead of wondering about you, he becomes focused on creating more space. The more you reach out, the more he pulls back. It becomes a cycle that drains your energy and lowers your emotional position in the connection. When you stop chasing, you interrupt that cycle completely. You create space, not just for him, but for yourself. And in that space, something powerful begins to happen. You regain control over your emotions. Instead of reacting impulsively, you start responding intentionally. That shift alone changes how you show up, how you think, and how you feel about the situation. Not chasing doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough to not abandon your self-respect in the process. It means you recognize that your value isn't determined by someone else's temporary decision. When you resist the urge to chase, you are choosing strength over fear. You are choosing dignity over desperation. There's also a psychological shift that happens on his side. When you don't chase, you become unpredictable. You break the pattern he might have expected. If he assumed you would reach out, try to convince him, or seek closure, and you don't do any of that, it creates curiosity. He starts to wonder why. He starts to think about you in a different way. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by your presence, he begins to notice your absence. And absence, when handled with strength, is powerful. It gives him the emotional space to process his own feelings without interference. It allows him to experience what life feels like without you actively trying to be part of it. That's when the contrast becomes real. That's when he can start to miss what he had, not because you told him to, but because he feels it on his own. At the same time, not chasing gives you the opportunity to reconnect with yourself. When you're constantly focused on someone else, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing, you lose touch with your own center. Stepping back allows you to rebuild that connection. You start focusing on your own routine, your own goals, your own emotional stability. And that shift doesn't just help you heal, it elevates you. Because the truth is, the most attractive energy you can have is not the energy of someone trying to hold on, but the energy of someone who knows they'll be okay no matter what happens. That kind of energy doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't beg, it invites. And when you embody that, you naturally change the entire dynamic without saying a single word. When someone pulls away, the emotional reaction that rises up inside you can feel overwhelming. Fear takes over quietly but powerfully. It shows up as overthinking every detail, replaying conversations, questioning what you did wrong, and wondering if you've lost him for good. That fear pushes you into a state where you feel like you need to act fast, fix things, or somehow regain control of the situation. But the truth is, fear-driven actions rarely lead to the outcome you want. They create urgency where patience is needed, and they replace confidence with insecurity. Shifting from fear to self-respect begins with awareness. You have to recognize that the panic you're feeling is not a signal to act, it's a signal to pause. That anxious energy is not guiding you toward clarity, it's pulling you deeper into emotional chaos. When you understand that you can start to separate your feelings from your actions, you may still feel the fear, but you don't have to obey it. That distinction is where your power begins. Self-respect is not loud or forceful. It's calm, grounded, and steady. It doesn't need to prove anything because it already knows its value. When you operate from self-respect, you stop asking, what can I do to make him stay? And start asking, what kind of behavior do I deserve? That shift changes everything. Instead of chasing validation, you begin setting a standard for how you want to be treated. Acting from fear often leads to overgiving. You might find yourself sending long messages, explaining your feelings in detail, or trying to show him how much you care in hopes that he'll come back. But when those actions come from fear, they don't land as love, they land as pressure, and pressure makes people pull away even more. Self-respect, on the other hand, understands that you don't need to convince someone of your worth. The right person recognizes it without being persuaded. There's also a deep sense of emotional stability that comes with self-respect. It allows you to sit in uncertainty without losing yourself. Instead of reacting to every thought or impulse, you become more intentional. You choose when to speak, when to step back, and when to let things unfold naturally. That calm presence is incredibly powerful because it shows that you are not dependent on someone else's actions to feel secure. When you embody self-respect, your energy changes in a way that people can feel. You're no longer trying to pull someone toward you. You're standing firmly in your own space. That creates a natural sense of attraction because it signals confidence and emotional maturity. It shows that you are someone who values themselves, and that kind of energy is not easy to walk away from. At the same time, this shift protects you. Fear makes you vulnerable in a way that can lead to regret, saying things you didn't mean, doing things that don't align with who you are, or giving more than you should. Self-respect acts as a boundary. It reminds you that no matter how much you care about someone, you cannot sacrifice your dignity to keep them. It also brings clarity. When you're not consumed by fear, you can see the situation more objectively. You begin to notice patterns, behaviors, and truths that you might have ignored before. You start to realize that someone pulling away says more about them than it does about your worth, and that realization frees you from the need to chase or convince. This shift isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about caring in a way that doesn't cost you your self-worth. It's about choosing strength even when you feel vulnerable. And the more you practice responding from self-respect instead of reacting from letting him feel your absence is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful shifts you can make when someone pulls away. Most people think that staying present through messages, calls, or constant reminders is what keeps a connection alive. But in reality, constant presence, especially when it's one-sided, can dilute emotional impact. When someone is always available, always reaching out, always trying to maintain the connection, there's no space left for the other person to feel the loss of that presence. Absence, when it comes from a place of strength, creates contrast. It allows him to experience what life feels like without your energy, your attention, your warmth, and that contrast is what triggers reflection. When you're no longer filling his phone with messages or showing up in the same way, there's a silence that replaces it. That silence isn't empty. It's loud in its own way. It creates questions in his mind. He starts to notice the shift, even if he doesn't consciously admit it at first. This is where curiosity begins to build. If he expected you to chase, to reach out, or to try to fix things, and you don't, it disrupts his expectations. people are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand. Your absence becomes something he can't immediately explain, and that uncertainty pulls his attention back toward you. Instead of you thinking about him all the time, he begins thinking about you. There's also an emotional process that can only happen in space. When you're constantly present, you're influencing his emotions in real time. He doesn't get the chance to sit with his own thoughts and feelings because you're always there trying to guide the connection. But when you step back, you give him ownership of his emotional experience. He has to process what he feels without your input. And that's where genuine realization can occur. Absence also restores balance. If the dynamic has become one-sided, where you're giving more attention, more effort, more emotional energy, stepping back evens things out. It removes the pressure from him and the overextension from you. It allows the connection to reset, even if temporarily. And in that reset, the true level of his interest becomes clearer. At the same time, your absence sends a silent message of self-worth. It communicates that you are not going to overextend yourself for someone who is pulling away. It shows that you respect yourself enough to not chase or force something that isn't being reciprocated. That kind of message doesn't need words. It's felt through your actions, or in this case, your lack of action. There's a difference between absence driven by hurt and absence driven by strength. When it's driven by hurt, it can feel like withdrawal, like you're trying to make a point or punish the other person. But when it's driven by strength, it feels calm, natural, and grounded. You're not disappearing to get a reaction. You're stepping back because you understand your value and you're not willing to compromise it. During this time, something else important happens. You begin to detach from the outcome. Instead of focusing on whether he comes back or not, you start focusing on your own life again. Your energy shifts away from waiting and toward living. And that shift not only helps you emotionally, but it also makes your presence, when it returns, even more impactful. Because when someone experiences your absence and then sees you again, strong, centered, and unchanged in your self-worth, it creates a powerful impression. It shows that you didn't fall apart, you didn't chase, and you didn't lose yourself. And that realization can spark a renewed sense of attraction that wasn't possible when you were constantly available, focusing on self. Growth in a moment when someone has walked away can feel counterintuitive at first. Your mind naturally wants to stay focused on them, what they're doing, what they're thinking, whether they'll come back. But the real shift happens when you redirect that energy inward. Instead of investing your time and emotions into something you can't control, you begin investing in the one thing you do have control over: yourself. Self-growth is not about becoming someone completely different to win someone back. It's about returning to your strongest, most grounded version. The version of you that feels confident, fulfilled, and emotionally stable regardless of anyone else's presence. When a relationship dynamic shakes you, it often reveals areas where you may have been over-dependent, over-giving, or disconnected from your own priorities. This is your opportunity to rebuild those areas with intention. Emotionally, this means learning how to regulate your feelings instead of being controlled by them. Instead of reacting to every thought or impulse, you begin to observe them. You allow yourself to feel the sadness, the confusion, even the disappointment, but you don't let those emotions dictate your behavior. That emotional discipline creates inner strength. It gives you a sense of stability that isn't dependent on external validation. Mentally, self-growth involves shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing the situation as a loss, you begin to see it as feedback, not in a way that blames you, but in a way that helps you understand yourself better. You start asking deeper questions. What patterns have I been repeating? Where have I been settling for less than I deserve? What kind of relationship do I truly want? These questions lead to clarity, and clarity leads to better decisions moving forward. Physically, it can be as simple as taking better care of your body, moving more, eating better, improving your daily routine. These actions may seem small, but they have a powerful effect on your confidence and energy. When you feel good physically, it naturally elevates your mood and your presence. You carry yourself differently. You show up in the world with more vitality, and that shift is noticeable. Socially, self-growth encourages you to reconnect with your life outside of the relationship. Spending time with friends, pursuing hobbies, exploring new interests, These experiences remind you that your world is bigger than one person. They help you rebuild a sense of identity that isn't tied to someone else's attention. And as you reconnect with your own life, you start to feel more complete on your own. There's also a deeper level of growth that happens in how you view your worth. When someone leaves, it's easy to internalize that as a reflection of your value. But self-growth challenges that belief. It teaches you that your worth is raw. It doesn't fluctuate based on someone's decision. The more you invest in yourself, the more you reinforce that belief. You begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't need to be chosen to feel valuable. You already are. And here's where the real shift happens as you grow. Your energy changes. You're no longer operating from a place of lack or neediness. You're operating from a place of fullness. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for someone who complements you. That difference is everything. This kind of energy is naturally attractive because it's rare. Most people are driven by validation and external approval. When you're grounded in your own growth, you stand out without trying. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to chase. Your presence alone communicates confidence, independence, and emotional maturity. And whether he comes back or not, you've already elevated yourself to a higher level, one where you attract better, choose better, and experience relationships from a place of strength rather than need. Energy is something most people underestimate, but it's one of the most powerful forces in attraction. Long before words are spoken or actions are taken, people are already responding to the energy you carry. That energy is a reflection of your emotional state, your confidence, your level of self-awareness, and how you feel about yourself in that moment. When you try to use words to win someone back, but your energy is coming from a place of fear or desperation, it creates a disconnect. The words may say one thing, but your energy is communicating something entirely different. When attraction is strong, it's rarely because someone said the perfect sentence or gave the perfect explanation. It's because of how they made the other person feel. Energy creates emotion. And emotion creates connection. So when you shift your focus from trying to say the right things to embodying the right energy, you begin to influence the dynamic in a much deeper way. Calm energy, for example, is incredibly powerful. When someone pulls away and you respond with calmness instead of panic, it creates a contrast that stands out. Most people react emotionally, overthinking, over-explaining, or overreaching. But when you remain grounded, composed, and steady, it sends a clear message: you are in control of yourself. That level of emotional control is attractive because it signals stability. It shows that you are not easily shaken and that you are not dependent on someone else's actions to regulate your emotions. Confidence is another key element of energy that influences attraction. But true confidence is not loud or forced. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's quiet, internal, and self-assured. It's the kind of confidence that comes from knowing your worth without needing constant reassurance. When you carry that kind of energy, you naturally shift the way others perceive you. You no longer come across as someone trying to be chosen. You come across as someone who already knows they are valuable. At the same time, your energy also determines how much space you allow others to take in your life. When your energy is rooted in neediness, you may unintentionally create a dynamic where the other person feels overwhelmed or pressured. But when your energy is balanced, grounded, and independent, you create a sense of ease. People are drawn to what feels easy, natural, and emotionally safe. Your energy becomes a place they want to be around, rather than something they feel they have to escape from. Another important aspect is emotional authenticity. When your energy aligns with who you truly are, not who you think you need to be, you become more magnetic. People can sense when someone is being genuine versus when they are trying too hard. Trying to impress or force a reaction often backfires because it comes from a place of insecurity. But when you simply show up as yourself, without attachment to the outcome, your energy feels real, and that authenticity creates a deeper level of attraction. What makes this even more powerful is that energy is felt even in silence. You don't need to constantly communicate or explain yourself for someone to feel your presence. The way you carry yourself, the way you handle space, the way you respond to distance, all of it speaks louder than words. When you stop reacting from emotional urgency and start responding from emotional balance, your energy shifts from chasing to attracting. And that shift changes everything. Instead of trying to pull someone back into your life through effort, you become someone who naturally draws others in. You stop forcing connection and start allowing it. You stop overextending yourself and start standing in your own space. And in that space, your energy becomes clear, strong, and undeniably attractive. In the end, the most powerful realization you can have is that you were never meant to chase someone into choosing you. The right connection doesn't require convincing, proving, or begging. It flows naturally when both people are aligned. When someone walks away, it doesn't diminish your value. It reveals where the alignment wasn't strong enough to sustain the connection. What truly matters is how you choose to respond. If you react from fear, you give away your power. If you respond from self-respect, you reclaim it. Every time you choose calm over chaos, growth over desperation, and self-worth over validation, you elevate yourself into a stronger, more magnetic version of who you are. And that version of you doesn't chase, it doesn't settle. It doesn't lose itself in the process of loving someone else. Instead, it stands grounded, confident, and whole, knowing that the right person will recognize that value without being forced to. Because in the end, love that is real doesn't need to be chested. It chooses you back.